Recorded live from Portland, Oregon, it's the Transamorous Network podcast. Let's get it on.
Okay, say something now.
Okay, how's that? Is it a little better?
Yeah, that's better.
A little bit better.
I'm going to pump us both up there like that.
I'm not a pheasant plucker. I'm a pheasant plucker's mate. I'm not a pheasant plucker. I'm a pheasant plucker's mate. Helps you with your
What
vows.
movie is that from? Is that from a movie?
It's from, I got it from a very old 1970s British TV show.
Oh. Do you remember the name of it?
Are You Being Served? It was about
What's
a
it
department.
about?
It was about a department store.
Oh.
The men's and women's department on the same floor.
It's a comedy?
Oh yes.
It's really funny, apparently.
It's my all-time favorite
really?
British comedy television show.
Anyone I'd know in it?
Probably not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to the Transamorous Network podcast. I'm Perry,
I'm Remy.
and today Shannon is not with us.
No,
I
she's
know.
busy doing important things.
Yeah, she's at that HRC girls basketball tournament.
Yes, the human rights campaign.
Yes,
She's working it out.
she's working it out. That's cool.
Absolutely.
On my way to work, we passed by a 3-on-3 basketball tournament at the, not the Rose Garden, but that place right next door to it, the Coliseum.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what it's called.
Uh-huh.
And so it's interesting that they're having their 3-on-3 and the HRC is having their 3-on-3 basketball
That's cool.
tournament. Yeah,
All right.
but none of that bullshit.
Oh.
So we've been gone for a while.
Yeah, we took a little vacation time.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, folks, but it was needed.
It was
for
needed.
everyone.
Yep, and we're probably going to do that on an annual basis,
Yeah. So
just to give us a break in July, so that we can take some time off and enjoy our lives
and summer,
and summer. Yes,
just ever so brief this year.
brief. Yes. Oh my. Although yesterday was a little too much summer for me.
I heard it's supposed to be warmer today.
Oh really?
Yes.
Good thing I got my short sleeves. Okay, so since Shannon isn't here, and even though Shannon isn't here, we're going to cover some really good topics today.
Yeah.
The first one we wanted to talk about is something tells me I'm forgetting something. Am I forgetting something? I don't think so. Okay.
Today's show is brought to you by and sponsored by the Velvet Rope in Portland.
Check you out. Actually, the Velvet Rope, let's talk a little bit about
All right.
Velvet Rope, because they are our newest sponsor.
Yay.
And we're very excited to have Matt and Alexis, thank you, supporting us with funding to make this program possible. They have actually, hi Matt, hi Alexis. They actually recommended we create a third show, which we're gonna do, but we're gonna hold off on it. We're not gonna say the name or what it's about, but it's gonna be very exciting. It could actually put the show, the entire network on the map.
Well, I think you should tell what the concept is.
No, because someone might
be
want
to be a guest.
Someone might want to be a guest, yes, but
And you ain't ready?
no, that's right.
Okay.
Not only
Well, all right, then we'll hold off on that, but it's coming. It's coming.
such a good idea. I don't want someone to take the idea and run with it because
I got
it's
what you're
so
saying.
unique.
I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the Velvet Rope. So the Velvet Rope is
Portland's premier
why don't you say
adult sex positive social club.
it? Awesome. Say it again.
Portland's premier sex positive social club.
Nice. Yeah, and they are. I've been to the Velvet Rope twice or one. It doesn't matter. I've been to the Velvet Rope, and it was the first time. It was twice. The first
2
time.
years for me. So
2 years for you. It was uncomfortable the first time because I didn't know what I was getting into. But the second time I went to what used to be called Transstasia. It's not called that anymore. And I had a really good time. And actually the time I met you, no, I had been, the first time I met you. Yeah, three times. Yeah. And it was a really great experience. You know, my idea of a sex positive social club is you go in there to have sex. And get some fucking on. And some people may do that.
There is space and opportunity for that. It's first and foremost a social club.
Thank you.
There's 10,000 square feet of space where there's like 2 hot tubs and a dance floor and a couple's private lounge and 13 private rooms and a bar and pool tables and a buffet and so there's a lot going on, or at least there can be a lot going on. It's all about who shows up and what vibe they bring to the party.
And contrary to what my expectations were you don't walk in there and then all of a sudden people are like propositioning you to have sex, nor are they touching you in places where they shouldn't be without permission.
Right.
It's very respectful.
And we're very important. We're really big about the rules.
Yeah. And so the Velvet Rope is located at
3533 Southeast Cesar Chavez, Portland, Oregon.
So if you're coming to Stumptown on vacation or on business or something like that, and you've got some extra time, and you are of the community, or you'd like to find out what the Velvet Rope is about, please stop by. And I've been told, Matt told me that anyone who mentions the Velvet, having heard about the Velvet Rope on the Transamorous Network, will receive a 50% off their membership. I believe
All
it is.
right.
So it's a really good deal.
I believe it. Yep.
Yeah, awesome.
That's good to go.
So thank you.
And so their website is
thank you.
thevelvetropepdx.com.
Right.
All right.
And we're going to be talking more about them as the shows roll out.
Yeah.
Actually, we're not going to talk about them the next two shows because we did those previous to this one and we didn't. Well, anyway. We'll get our regular going after those two shows.
Yes.
All right. So we're going to talk about what's in the news today.
Yeah.
Or this last week. A lot of good stuff in the news with regard to the trans community. As everyone probably knows, you should know that last week the Democratic National Convention concluded with the confirmation of Hillary Clinton as the Democratic nominee for president.
Right.
She will be running against the Donald.
And that's what we'll say about that.
Not to be mistaken, although it's easy, with Donald Duck.
I'd sooner. Anyway,
at the Democratic National Convention, history was made.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about, there was history made with regard to a woman ever
nominee,
being nominated
yes,
for
absolutely.
president. That was fantastic. And let's give props for the females in the House. But the actual history that we're talking about is the first ever opportunity for a trans woman to give a speech at any kind of any trans person. You're right, that we know of. At any
openly.
Yes. At any convention ever.
Yes.
Which was awesome.
Sarah McBride.
Sarah McBride is a 25-year-old transgender woman who
she's a former intern at the White House.
So she has her political chops.
Right. She's also in the Human Rights Campaign.
She works for the Human Rights Campaign, and
that's where she met her husband.
Yes, who is also a trans person.
Trans man who sadly passed away
4 days after they got married.
Wow.
That's some heavy shit.
Right? But, I don't know how long ago this was, but she's handled it amazingly from what you can tell, and her speech was wonderful. I just loved it, and some of the things in that speech are really little key things, for
like
me.
What?
So she said something that in the very beginning, that she was worried her dreams and her identity were mutually exclusive, which many of us can understand and relate to, not that the story's not matching up with the desires.
Oh, so like maybe wanting to be president, but knowing or believing that because you're transgender, that would never happen, like that?
Right.
Yeah.
Something like that, something like she wants to speak at a national convention, but because she's trans, that'll never happen.
Yeah.
That she would get married.
Yeah, that's a big
never
one.
Right? You know what I mean? She could have been telling herself any of those types of stories, but that's what I got from that line, that that there was that point where she can relate, and then many of us can relate to that point. And then that brings us to like what we talk about, you know what I mean? And that somewhere in that line, and it sounds like it was after her husband's passing, which was 4 days after their wedding.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Talk about, it's coming. He was dying of cancer, but that seems very, sudden, and I would imagine a little unexpected.
I wonder if there was at the meta level of spirituality, there probably was a relationship there, right? And his passing triggered something in her that allowed her to take this.
All things happen
for
a reason.
Right? It's like I'm getting goose pimples. It's so beautiful of a story. Most people look at that and they'll be like, "Oh man, that was tragic." And it is heavy. It's heavy, but is it really a tragedy? Look what Sarah has done.
But to be in a place where, you know what I mean? It sounds like before that, she was in this can't happen because this won't happen because this isn't gonna happen. My dreams won't occur because, because of my identity and who I am.
Yes.
And I think he started that, just getting together and starting that. It's all possible. Then you know what I mean?
I totally get what you're saying, and I agree with you.
And you know that your partner is dying.
Mm-hmm.
But you still want and expect as much time as possible, I think, and just 4 days after, I'm sure you would, I don't know. There's not details. At least we haven't found into that part of the story. But
I think you're right, Remy.
At that point, being where she probably was, I could imagine she felt a tragedy, but something triggered.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think I can imagine her before meeting, what was his name? Andy, thank you. Before meeting Andy, that maybe she had a story that she could not find of someone that she would marry. Ended up meeting Andy. That became possible. And then the doors kind of opened up. Wow, if I can get married, anything's possible. And then, of course, we had...
she was intern at the White House.
I know, right?
I mean,
that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah,
for anybody,
and as an openly transgender American woman.
Yes.
She's a proud transgender American, as she put it.
Well, it's interesting. Awesome. So I would say most of America at this point, or at least half of America, is going, wow, how remarkable is it now for girls that they can now say, I could be president, now that they see what's going on with Hillary.
Right.
So the same thing can be going on with the trans community, right?
Absolutely.
Where wow. I mean, it's a part of my mind says, yes, this is possible. The trans community is at this inflection point. Sarah McBride represents this amazing shift. And now maybe people in the trans community can start looking toward the positive things that are going on in their community as opposed to focusing so much on the negative things.
It'll help when she wins.
Yes.
I think a lot of bitches are holding their breath right at the moment.
Yes. And so I think, for the trans community, this is a huge marker in the history, in the unfolding reality for trans people in general.
Absolutely.
To have Sarah McBride get up there and speak before the Democratic National Convention. It's so funny because I think about the gay community, and the guy who introduced Sarah at the convention is an openly gay man, and the Republican National Convention had a gay man there who was
a gay man.
There are probably a lot, but most of them were closeted.
I'm sure that there are a lot of gay Republicans, but I can't imagine even they would support him.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
that's a whole nother conversation. We're not going to get into right now.
Well, we could talk about Caitlyn Jenner too, but let's not do that. So
back to Sarah McBride.
Back to Sarah.
We like
you. Yes. And so when I think about the path that the gay male community has gone through with regard to being recognized and honored and accepted, it seems to me that the trans community's process is happening in a shorter amount of time.
Possibly. It does seem kind of rocketed,
doesn't it?
Like very quickly, it's gone from meh to like this really big thing. And it's funny, who really puts it all out there and made it such a big thing is these people who are against the whole idea, and made this fucking bathroom issue. It's your fault now that it's being like skyrocketed because it's now so much in the public's attention. And again, it's diversion. From pay attention to the more important things, not who's going pee where.
Yeah, but it's interesting thing
unless it's in your hair, then you worry
or in your
about
mouth,
whatever.
But it's
dirty boy, dirty boy.
But it's interesting that little issue became this big issue, and as a result of that big issue, now we have, like you said, a rocketing path of transgender acceptance, and it is coming to the acceptance. I mean, Remy and I, we have these Google alerts where we get news as it happens in our inbox, and I'm reading through all these things, and there is a lot of activity going on.
Yeah, I mean, schools across America are planning to start next year with gender identity and transgendered and sexual identity, those concepts. And of course it's going to vary from state to state and school district to school district. California, though, making a promise that they will make some major changes. But lots of other states are starting to get their shit in order. I hear Washington right next to us. My very good friend, you've seen her on our Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
Kendall, she has an older one, 6 years old, is in school, and she's gotten in word, all of the parents in that school district, Clark County, that starting next year, that's going to be part of the curriculum. And how she's already heard mixed reviews just from the people she knows living in that very next door, very small-minded town.
Well, yeah. And then I think we talked about Oregon having this tremendous policy that they passed for, I think it was universities and schools, about how we talked about how the graduating kids would have 2 diplomas, one with their legal name and one with their, remember that?
Yes.
So yeah, there's all kinds of changes going on. And so this is why I say that if the trans, imagine what would happen. Imagine what the trans community, where the trans community would be if everyone was focused on the positive things going on instead of focusing so much on the negative things. I mean, we are seeing so much rapid progression in our community. I think it's awesome. And then so that's for the community. And then when I think about the men like myself, it's like, and I said this on the Facebook post, our first Facebook page, it's like, how much more prominent do trans women need to get before you accept that your attraction to these people is normal?
Right. They're now speaking at national conventions, which is aired internationally,
man,
with millions of people watching just to see what the fuck America is doing. Because America, what the fuck are you doing?
It is interesting. It is.
Oh
interesting.
My god!
I know
it's so beyond my fathoming.
I know.
It's.
But it's a perfect. Isn't it the perfect context for the transgender experience to be coming out? I mean, you've got this crazy man on the right and this woman on the left who some people love and some people hate, and then you have this other guy, the old guy, who has these rabid believers, and these 3 people are causing all this chaos, and in the midst of all that, the transgender thing is coming out.
Yeah, the transgendered.
And so
struggle power,
advancement, whatever it is. And so it's
awakening.
Yeah,
America's
like that
awakening.
Word. I like that word.
World.
Yes. And so it just seems to me, men, that it's the perfect opportunity, the perfect time in life to own your attraction. And it seems to me, and I'll acknowledge I'm in a bubble here in Portland, Oregon, where it's really nice. But it seems to me that if men were to take the opportunity to come out now, it would be easier than ever before, because the entire world is talking about this, and people, it seems like it would be like, oh, you are? That's pretty cool, man. Did you see the Sarah McBride on the,
So I have a little interesting story that's happened a couple of days ago, this last week or whatever. So there's an app that I was playing with, and someone gave me a blue star. So I swiped them right.
What does that mean?
Those who do it know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I swiped right. Okay. Which started a conversation. This guy, he's not my type, but there was just something about like him and him super liking me, and so I swiped him right and started a conversation. And I had questions for him because I was like, so why would you super like me? I mean, you read my simple little profile. And he was like, I don't know. There's, I've recently discovered my attraction or my feelings for or whatever it was. And so we ended up having this conversation back and forth. And I was like, you should really check out transamoroursnetwork.com, And I was like, I think you'd find it very interesting. And like, I don't hear from him for like 10 minutes or something. And then I get back oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Oh my God, it makes me feel so much better that I'm not alone and that this isn't wrong and weird and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with being trans attracted or transamorous. There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like coming into his own understanding of it, So I introduced him to the network and things. And I was like, you really should get the book. And I was like, hey, you want to be a guest on the show? So this is where it gets really weird for me.
Yeah.
21-year-old.
Okay.
Really interested. But because it's like Saturdays and in the mornings, his mom, if he like called in, would be on the other line listening and like asking, who's on the phone?
Why? Because she just does that?
Or if he was leaving, she'd be blowing his phone up and, where are you going? Why are you going there? Like, very controlling, into his business, nothing private, deep belief systems, I believe. He says she's crazy, and I believe it, just listening to the things that she would do and how he allows that.
Interesting.
It allows that to be his world. And he's like, I'm hoping to move out really, really soon. Good luck, and I hope you do.
Yeah.
Because that is not a healthy situation.
No, it's not at all. Can you say where he lives?
Locally.
Oh, in Oh, really? Wow.
Locally.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
Wow,
crazy
that is
people.
crazy. Yeah,
I just found it
people.
was really interesting. But so the last part was really interesting, because I'm like, oh, wow. You really need to get the book.
Yeah. How does so he's on this app. I guess his mother doesn't have that much control over what he's doing. He's 21 years old, but he's 21 or under 20?
21.
He's 21.
Is what it says.
Why is he living with his parents still? I mean, there's a lot of young people.
I
wasn't
have
a long conversation.
I didn't want to. I don't care about that.
I see. Yeah.
I wasn't interested in him in that concept.
Yeah.
Of getting to know him that way so much.
Interesting.
As a potential guest, and. Yeah, and there was just something about him, and I think it was related to the network and having to like introduce him to it and hoping that it would change his world.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think with Micah having come on the show, who you will hear in a couple weeks, I think we're going to see more and more men coming out, and I just can't help but feel that, like I said before, this is the perfect time for men to start stepping up and owning themselves. And when they do, I just have a feeling that they're going to be accepted, that people are going to be like, oh, that's no big deal. Except maybe their families. Yeah.
I don't know. It goes, so many people do have such strong feelings for whatever the fuck reason about transgendered people and anyone who might be affiliated with them, us. But then there's the ones who are like, whatever, love is love.
Yeah.
And, she's a woman. What's the problem?
Yeah.
Or
she's a person.
Or she's a person. Or she's whatever she identifies in, and you love her for it. And it's okay.
It's okay. I don't want to spill the beans on Micah's interview because that was such a good interview, but I don't understand why people have a hard time with other people's interest in other people. It's not like a transamorous man is trying to get with that guy who doesn't like the idea. And because he's transamorous, he will never have any interest in that guy.
Right. He's not a gay man.
Yeah.
Looking for a gay man. That's not what he's looking for.
Or even trying to turn a straight man.
No, it's not what he's looking for.
I just don't get it.
I don't know. People are stupid.
They are stupid. And that brings up the next one thing we wanted to talk about. I'm having this long running conversation on Facebook with this guy who commented on a post that I put on my personal page about it was about the thing we're going to talk about. So there's this article in Time magazine that spawned this huge media coverage of this issue. The World Health Organization is about to rescind their designation of transgenderism as a mental illness. And so
gender identity dysphoria.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. And so I posted this thing on my personal page and said, I questioned, I said, the DSM, which is the diagnostic manual for mental health practitioners, it's like the Bible that describes all the illnesses that mental health practitioners have to confront, is looking at doing the same thing. And there was a time when homosexuality was seen as a mental illness, and I believe they're beginning to look at autism and considering that not a mental illness either. And so my question on my Facebook page was how many of these things that are in this quote unquote Bible have to come out as not really real? How many of those things are we going to have to go through before we just accept the human race as the human race? And I include, of course, I was talking about transgender, people who are transgender. And this guy was like, he started posting these videos from these organizations that are anti-transgender, many of them religious organizations. Mm-hmm. And you remember our guest, the woman from Eugene.
Yeah, I know you're talking
You know what I'm
about.
talking about? Yeah, the military person. She, oh my God, she had such strong and persuasive and intellectual arguments for this guy until he pushed the wrong buttons, and then she went all 4-letter word on him. But it's interesting that this guy was not getting what I was seeing with this Time Magazine article and the World Health Organization coming out saying, we might have had it wrong. This is a huge watershed moment for transgender people, because not only is the World Health Organization saying that being transgender is not a mental illness, they're acknowledging that where all the shit comes from that transgender people have to face is the stigma that they face in society. So it's not really a problem with it's not the transgendered person's problem being a transgender that's causing the problems. It's society's problem that it has with transgender people that's causing the problems for the transgender people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's so fucking fucked up.
It's the way that transgender people are perceived, and felt, and loved, and
or not. Yes.
That creates this much of the situation and the story that ends up being created to you. You know what? That's where the stories don't match up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, having the dreams, but having society look at you this way.
Good tie back.
Right? There's that. You know, how the hell do I get past all this to get to that?
Mm-hmm.
How is that even possible?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and it's interesting because people say that
It is.
What?
It is possible.
Well, definitely is possible. That's what we're here for. Yeah, but people say that transgender people are crazy, but it's society that's making them crazy. I'd be crazy too if I couldn't get a fucking job and my parents hated my ass because of who I am,
right?
And I couldn't get love from other people because they treated me like so and so. And of course, I would make up stories that were consistent with my experiences. And this is where, oh my God, this is such a good show. This is where it gets really twisted, because it's easy when you have an experience and then make a story about that experience. It's easy to say, well, that experience created my story. When in reality, what happened is you had an experience and then you created a story about that experience, and then the story stuck for you. Right? And so,
well, right, because it probably happened another time or something similar enough to help you cement that as reality.
Remy, yes. And then and from there, it's easy to say, I have no power. It's bullshit that my story creates my reality. You know, I have no ability to change this because this is the way.
I have no control
I have
over
no
what
control.
happens to me.
Exactly.
And we don't, and that's it. But if we didn't have to worry about that, what people will do to me, you know, and not having the control on that. You know, if people believed differently, if they felt, if they knew it wasn't a mental illness, if it wasn't wrong or disgusting or whatever these other thoughts and patterns are, abominations, whatever the words that you want to use, it's, you know, it's your issue.
Yeah.
And your issue creates an issue for me.
And this is where, back to the guide and to the men we're speaking to here, this is where their role comes in. It's like, you know, a transgender person is looking for the same thing that you're looking for love and acceptance. And who are they going to get the love and acceptance from? Well, according to this article, 50% of the transgender people aren't getting it from, is that right? Or is it
57%.
Higher than that?
It was 57%.
57% of transgender youth who did not have supportive parents attempted to commit suicide. So that's not the stat I was looking for. It's the stat I was going to say is not in here. The question. So it's like transgender people are out there looking for love and acceptance, and they're not getting it in most cases from their family.
Right.
So then they try and create a family in the community, but that doesn't satisfy the love and acceptance that they can only get from a romantic relationship.
Well, right. Absolutely. And it can be hard to find a community.
It can be hard to find a community.
Why many trans people have the isolation problem.
Yes. And so when they so here they are, and Shannon talked about this in her personal life. Here they are, transgender people. Let's talk about transgender women specifically. They go out into these weird places, not weird. They go out into these let's call them shady places, looking for love and acceptance. And they're looking for love and acceptance in very unhealthy ways.
Right.
And when they meet you guys who have this attraction and you haven't reconciled your attraction, and so you're acting like a dick because you haven't reconciled that attraction.
You act like that tranny chasing.
Yeah, yes, Remy, yes.
Douchebag.
Yes. Yes. And so it's so interesting how all this is tied together, because here's this woman, this trans woman who's out there trying to find love and acceptance. She hasn't really reconciled her own personal love and acceptance. So she goes does searches for love and acceptance in these shady areas where she meets these shady guys, but the guys aren't shady, because just like the woman who
not all of them.
Right. It's interesting, because even the ones that would be described as shady, I think they're shady because they haven't accepted their situation either.
Okay.
I think that's the reality. I mean, that's my story anyway. So these women are out there and they're in these shady areas. The guys are out there and they're in these shady areas, and let's just remove the shade. And the way to remove the shade is for men.
Turn the light on, Cletus.
Exactly. And actually, when you do that, all those really shady men that you're talking about will run like cockroaches, because cockroaches don't like the light.
You're right.
Right? Then nothing will be left but the transamorous men who've owned their shit.
That's right. The rodents do retreat back to the shadows.
Exactly.
Crawl back into your hole.
Exactly. And so it's very interesting the way that it's all tied together.
But that shade comes from society.
Well, that's exactly right. God damn it.
Society's view on the whole thing.
Because the men can't be themselves, because they're going to be jacked up and teased and all that shit.
You would just be worried about you being you. Whoever you are, everybody. If everyone was just worried about you being you, it would all meld together in such a beautiful way. It would. You know, the weave can be so smooth, but instead we have all these knots because, it's a web. It's all tied together. And there's all these weird knots that ends up happening that we create because... What
a beautiful analogy that is. When you said weave, the first thing I thought of is the weave that African-American women...
Well, it's funny, so quickly, weave for black women is extensions.
Right? Oh, okay.
A weave for the white ladies is a color technique.
It's
a highlighting color technique.
That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It doesn't.
Because the weave, you're actually weaving it.
Right. But you're weaving with the rat tail comb a certain pattern that you're highlighting and coloring. So it's coloring where you weave and you weave the color.
Okay.
Into the hairstyle.
You'll have to show me some hairstyles that's a result of a weave, because I've never seen that before, or maybe I have and I just didn't know.
All the white girls with highlights and lowlights.
That's what we. Oh,
that's that they've gotten a color weave.
Damn, I just learned something new.
You did. I can weave it all. So anyway,
yeah. So it's just so this weave is so tightly woven, and the Sarah. It's interesting because I wanted to say this too. When I first heard that Sarah's husband looks like a cis man, and when I first heard and saw pictures of him, I thought he was cis. And then it turned out, just this morning, I found out that he wasn't.
No.
And what immediately went off in my mind was one of the old stories I have about trans women. It's actually about myself, which is, I'm never going to find a trans woman because they're all interested in other trans people. Because Sarah was married to a trans man.
And that's a story that could be created from that situation.
Exactly.
Or the story could also be created that because guys aren't stepping up, they're finding the women are having to look for their love in a different way and open their eyes to something different. That who I love doesn't have to be a cis man.
Yeah, or even a man at all.
I mean, I'm personally not necessarily interested in other trans people in that way, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't happen.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do know what you mean. It's so interesting the way that relationships are broadening in this way. But anyway, my point was, in saying all of that, was trans attracted men, by hearing this story about Sarah, should not walk away thinking, okay, so Sarah's really attractive. And this just goes to show you that there's not a trans woman out there for me, because the ones I want are with people in the trans community.
Right.
That doesn't mean squat.
Really. No, and I think they happen often because you can relate. And so you find yourself within those communities. So if you are able to find a trans community of some kind where you you can feel safe support groups
Oh,
or
good point.
whatever, right? You might then fall for someone there because the chemistries and energies are right, right?
And the struggle is shared and all
the
that.
struggle is shared. And,
I get that.
And
I get
you
that.
know,
That's really interesting.
I had a counselor, even though my therapist was a trans man, and though our stories are the opposite and of course different, there was still a different kind of connection that could happen between us because we understood the two spirit struggle.
I get that.
Within today's society.
I get that. And it's funny what you just said released for me the story that I was making up about that situation, because it's like, oh, I get it. There's a commonality in that shared struggle.
Right. Who's to say that those stories are going to last forever?
Right.
But that they very much match up at a moment.
Right.
And can and will and do stay together, but don't always, I mean, she might find a cis man, she might find a cis woman, another trans woman, who knows, I doubt she's looking for anyone at the moment after losing her husband 4 days after the but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I do.
The next time you hear about Sarah McBride getting married, it could be, if it happens. I'm just hypothetically speaking.
I mean, she's young. She's only 25, so she's got plenty of life ahead of her.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, although she's...
Bitch got far.
Well, not only has
25?
she got... Yeah, I know.
Bitch, I'm jealous.
I know. And
whatever.
Shit, she's probably... If I were her, I wouldn't be thinking about a relationship. I'd be thinking about my professional future.
And it's probably what she's focused on at this point.
And maybe even getting into the White House, for all we know.
Who knows?
Right? She's 20-fucking-5. She's got plenty of time.
She got lots of time.
So anyway, this Time article, one of the stats that popped out, we addressed it a little bit before, was really shocking to me, that 57% of transgender youth who did not have supportive parents attempted suicide, whereas just 4% of transgender youth with very supportive parents tried to commit suicide. So it's like,
so how many percent is left? Like another 40%? It's like 60%, right?
Yeah.
So another 40% of trans people who are healthy, not trying to commit suicide with either
supportive
or not supportive,
are still going for it.
Right.
Yeah, that's a really good way. You're so awesome. That's a really good way of looking at it. It's funny because people often, when they hear a statistic, they don't do that reciprocal statistic. It's
that's only a certain percent. What's the rest of the percent?
Exactly.
Because that's if you think 100 out of 100%, 57 with unsupportive parents have tried to commit suicide. 4% with supportive parents have tried to commit suicide.
So that means like
40%. The other 40% has either
whether they're supportive or not in their family
have not
tried to commit suicide. That's awesome.
I would be one of them.
High five.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
And I have supportive mother.
Yes, you do, and a supportive extended family.
Yes,
Fuck yeah. You were talking about that the last show, not
the upcoming show.
Yeah,
you'll hear about it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting. So yeah, that's a really good point. And see, this is the thing, Remy. This takes me back again to where does the community focus its attention? I mean, God, 40% of people who are trans, and some number of those don't have supportive families, they're not fine, but they're not committing suicide.
Right. And 60% of trans people are trying to commit suicide.
Correct. So there's
either supportive or non-supportive.
That's exactly right.
60% of trans people out of however...
they did 250.
I think there's 250 people. That there's an estimated
250 people.
14 million.
Yeah, 1.4 million.
1.4 million trans people in America.
Yeah,
creating 0.6% of the population.
Yep. Good job.
That's a substantial number.
Yeah.
And
80% of the people of those 250 people that they interviewed were trans women. Mm-hmm. So it's so interesting. It's just interesting. Moment of silence for that.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
It's a web, and it's a web that we can undo the knots if we change the stories that are connected to them.
Absolutely. And it's, there was a point, Remy, where I was thinking maybe we should tone down the creating your stories portion of our show and just talk about issues that are going on. But then I thought, no way, man. This is
what we do. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. And we're making a huge difference. I mean, when they hear Micah talk and, as more men start coming on the show, I think it's going to be more and more apparent of the difference that we're making. So it's really exciting. And I can't wait for that show that I'm keeping under wraps that the Velvet Rope had suggested to launch. And then also when we get our first family, that's talking about the things we talk about. That's going to be really exciting. And so, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff happening.
Mm-hmm. And it's because we believe the stories that we've created about this network
That's
and
exactly right.
and the work that we're doing. I mean, we continue to see it working for us. You know, I mean, yeah, things are just great. You know, even with all the hardships, it's still great.
It's so interesting that you say that because it's absolutely true. And it's it's going to be really interesting 10 years from now to look at the Transamorous network at that point and then go back 10 years to today and hear this conversation and the listeners and the viewers having that opportunity to do that and see the results of what we're talking about actually show up. It's going to be, oh my goodness, it's just so exciting just to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we're kind of stumbling through it with the show, but it's still really good content.
Absolutely.
I think it is, yeah.
And I mean, the people we've touched so far, I think have all changed in some way from listening to a complete show.
Absolutely.
If you listen to a complete show, you've gotten something.
Yep. And we're going to be revisiting
At
those
least we
people.
offered something, and hopefully you were open to receive it.
I don't think it's possible for them not to have a difference made in their lives.
I don't think so either, but...
Yeah. In some way. I mean, we may not be able to put our finger on it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure that they've been affected in a positive way.
Just knowing that people believe that it can be okay
Mm-hmm.
sometimes can help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that you're not alone.
You're definitely not alone, and we would love to hear from you if you're out there. Well, we have heard from some of the men.
That's great.
It will be.
They're stepping up.
They are.
Where are the
stepping
rest
up.
of you
and,
boys?
And it's interesting because they're stepping up in their unique ways. So there was a guy who wrote an email or a response on our website, and he said, you know, I get what you're saying about being authentic, but I really have to think about my family, and I get that. You know, there was another guy who said, God, I watch every show. It's awesome, and that's really great.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had Micah who responded on our our YouTube page, who is on the show next week or the week after.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting the responses from the men, and it's just, and see, that's the thing. It's part of my mind could go, yeah, we've only had responses from 3 people so far, but we've only been running the show since April or something like that.
Months.
I mean, it started in March, but we didn't do the show until April or so. And already we're seeing really remarkable results.
Absolutely.
It's really good.
Even if it's a person at a time.
Mm-hmm. That's all. Because over 10 years, a person at a time is going to equal a lot of people and a lot of results. And, you know, we already have our sponsor with the Velvet Rope. That's really exciting. Thanks to you. And we're going to get more sponsors, and this thing's going to get bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, we're going to have Laverne Cox on or someone like that. Or maybe Sarah McBride even. And
That would be awesome.
won't it be awesome? It would be awesome. I'm just thinking in my head, how can I reach Sarah McBride? Because she would probably want to be on this show given what she's done. Anyway.
There's got to be a way to write to her.
Oh, there's certainly. It's just whether, yeah. I mean, right now she's so at the top of her game, I bet. She's got like the New Yorker and check you out.
So all she can do is say no to
Yeah,
the
that's
invitation.
exactly right. Yeah,
or
that's
not
exactly
now.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Or I can squeeze you in 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
Her schedule probably is out that far. You know what I'm saying? That's fine. We'll see you in 7 months, girl. Come on.
Okay, I'm going to reach out to her. I think that'd be awesome.
Don't be afraid. Don't get gun shy again.
I know, right? That last time sucked.
Don't you get gun
I was
shy
so
again,
on my
damn
own
it.
case because that was a perfect couple that would have loved, and I bet they would have come in too that morning and done the goddamn show. Anyway.
It's all right. Now you know not to be gun shy this time.
No, I'm not good.
Who
See,
knows?
that's the thing.
And who knows? Maybe we will see Sarah McBride through Skype or in person. Who knows?
Right?
She might be able to get a Skype phone call in real quick. Who knows? Anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
I believe it is.
I believe it too.
All right.
Most of the time.
I believe it. I'll see you later, girl.
All right. I guess that's the end of the show because we're at 44 minutes. So we did good today.
All right, gentlemen. Step your game up.
Step it up. Come on out. If you want to be a guest on the show, just send us an email or reach out through the website. The email is info@transamorousnetwork.com, or you can just make a comment on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ actually it's not /Transamorous Network because we don't have 100 subscribers yet. If you're out there and you like the show, subscribe to us on YouTube so we can get to 100, and then we can get our vanity title for our vanity URL for our YouTube channel. All right. I think we're done.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.